today on Our Lady of Guadalupe and the tilma that belonged to St. Juan Diego, where the Miraculous Image was imprinted on his tilma, which basically the Mexican people use like a poncho. When they're working, they can carry things in. St. Juan Diego was born in 1474 near Mexico City. The name is very hard to pronounce of the actual place. It means place of the eagles in the Aztec language. St. Juan Diego's name in their language is also extremely hard to pronounce, but it means one who speaks like an eagle. Mexico City fell under Spanish rule, but because of cruelty from the Spanish soldiers, nobody really wanted to convert. And then when the Franciscan missionaries came, few natives still were interested in converting. But as time went on, the Franciscan missionaries did start winning over some people, and St. Juan Diego and his wife were two of those people. And Juan Diego's wife, because he wasn't a saint yet, technically, she took the name Maria Lucia. She died 3 years later in 1529. So one day on the way to Mass in catechism class, St. Juan Diego heard some rare birds singing, and then all of a sudden everything was quiet, and there was this beautiful woman standing there with a bright light around her, and she was wearing a pink dress, a black sash about her waist, and a long blue mantle on her head with golden stars decorating it. And I want to be clear here too that I'm going to be using my notes because it's very specific things in here, just so my videos will get better as time goes along. This apparition would become known as Our Lady of Guadalupe. The Blessed Virgin revealed her identity and told St. Juan Diego that she wanted a church built in a certain spot with instructions to tell the bishop what Our Lady had said. And please remember to turn up my videos, because when I do some of these audio ones, for some reason they're very low. So please remember to turn them up. When St. Juan Diego spoke to the bishop after much waiting, the bishop told Juan that he had to think about it, the incredible story that was just relayed to him. On the way home, St. Juan Diego again met the Blessed Virgin. Her dignity and presence reminded Juan of an Aztec princess, and she asked him what the bishop had said. And Juan was discouraged and said that he didn't feel like the bishop believed him. So this is when the Blessed Virgin revealed to Juan that he was specifically chosen, and she said no, she wants him to bring this news to the bishop. So Juan promised he would, and then he would tell Our Lady what happened after the visit. So now Juan Diego returns to the bishop, but the servants don't even announce him. And when the bishop finally spoke to Juan, as he didn't know he had been waiting outside, Juan Diego told the bishop once again that it was the Mother of God that had sent him. So the bishop decided to ask for some proof before fulfilling Our Lady's request. What St. Juan Diego didn't know was that the bishop had him followed, and the spies lost sight of Juan when he reached the top of the hill. When Juan relayed the bishop's message to Our Lady, she told him that she would send a sign and that Juan would be well rewarded. Upon Juan's return home, he found his uncle very ill, and he was worried that he would not be able to keep his appointment the next day with the beautiful lady from heaven. Now, don't forget, St. Juan Diego was very ignorant. He was a good man, but he was very simple and ignorant. So he really believed that this was Our Lady of Guadalupe, and he really took her for everything that she said. He was a man of his word. Juan cared for his uncle throughout the night and promised to bring a priest for last rites. The next day, as his uncle was fearing that he was near death, Juan was worried that his uncle would die without the priest. So he took an alternate route because he thought that the lady would stall him and that he would not have time to get the priest. But Our Lady appeared to Juan on the other side of the hill and said not to worry, that there was no need for the priest because Juan's uncle was fully healed. So Juan was so happy he promised to do anything the lady asked. So Our Lady of Guadalupe told Juan to go to the top of Tepeyac Hill and gather some flowers in his tilma and bring them to Our Lady. Then Our Lady arranges the flowers in the tilma of St. Juan Diego, and when he went to the hill to find the flowers, he had thought it was weird that the flowers were frozen. There were roses, and they were frozen, but very beautiful and blooming in the frozen earth. So he picked the roses and presented them to Our Lady. Like I said, she arranged them, and she told him not to let anybody see anything. And so Our Lady told him that the bishop would believe him this time. So when Juan arrived at the bishop's house, the servants taunted Juan and tried to get him to open his tilma, but he held it close to him so that they could not look inside of what was in the tilma. When Juan opened his tilma, a bunch of roses flew out, and the bishop was shocked to see Castilian roses. that only grew in Spain, and it was the exact sign that the bishop had been praying for. But even more fascinating was the image emblazoned on Juan's tilma. It was a colorful image of Our Lady of Guadalupe with the rays of the sun surrounding her and the moon at her feet. The black ribbon that's tied around her waist symbolizes that the woman is expecting a baby in Aztec culture. So that it symbolized that she was expecting the Mother of God. This is the Blessed Virgin. This is the way she appeared to St. Juan Diego. So Juan spent the night as a guest of honor and hung the tilma in his had the tilma hung in the bishop's private chapel. He didn't do it, the bishop did it. Now it's important to note that the day Juan's uncle was sick, Our Lady also appeared to Juan's dying uncle, and after she appeared, Juan's uncle was completely cured. But the lady told the uncle that she had sent Juan to the bishop with her image on his tilma. She told the bishop would visit his home, and when he did, to tell the bishop that the lady was called Our Lady of Guadalupe. The bishop was actually shocked because the name Guadalupe was the name of his monastery in Spain. In the choir loft, there was a picture of Our Lady almost identical, except that she was carrying the Christ child. It remains there to this day. Now, what's interesting is the words de Guadalupe, spelled or spoken in the Aztec language. Their alphabet does not have a D or a G. Our Lady spoke in the dialect of the Aztecs. It's Nahuatl. It's, again, a very difficult word to pronounce. One logical reason this might be is because Tequatlalaupe sounds like Guadalupe. In Aztec, it means she who crushes the head of the serpent. The native people worshipped an evil serpent's god. Interesting because in many images around the world, the Virgin is often portrayed as stomping the head of the serpent, the snake, which means the devil. Guadalupe means Wolf River. A monastery in honor of Our Lady of Spain received this name due to the many wolves that prowled the area. Father Zumarraga, which he later became the bishop, who's the bishop that St. Juan Diego spoke to, prayed there fervently before he left to eventually become the first bishop of Mexico. And that area is known for being plentiful in Castilian roses. The bishop kept his word and built a beautiful church, and as the years went by, the church sunk into the ground. So by the 1970s, a beautiful, even bigger basilica was erected right next door, the original church in Mexico City. So both of them were right there. St. Juan Diego's tilma still hangs today in the newly built basilica. Another thing important to note is that Cortez had conquered the Aztecs at that time when St. Juan Diego was still, this is during the apparitions, and the Aztecs were close to animals. They were performing human sacrifices, cutting the beating hearts out of their bravest men to appease the gods. They also sacrificed some of their prisoners the same way. And I should kind of clarify, this was all happening right around the time and before St. Juan Diego. So when Our Lady of Guadalupe came, this was an answer to a prayer that the bishop had been praying for, that something would happen that would convert these people that were so vicious. But Cortez was brutal and took advantage of Montezuma. We all know the story of Montezuma, the Aztec emperor. Montezuma was eventually killed. The soldiers began persecuting the natives, and the king of Spain was impressed with Father Zumarraga, his holiness, and that's why he eventually became the first bishop of Mexico. He was supposed to kind of take note of the happenings between the Aztecs and the soldiers. The bishop had prayed for a solution to this problem, and so when Our Lady of Guadalupe came, he took that as a sign that was an answer to his prayer. And the actual conversion that happened after Our Lady of Guadalupe, it was 100,000 Aztecs were baptized within the year after Our Lady of Guadalupe had appeared. After 500 years, St. Juan Diego's tilma has shown no signs of aging or wear. Tilmas are made from the maguey plant. They don't last more than 20 years, yet St. Juan Diego's tilma is like the day he received the image. The image has never faded, and St. Juan Diego was canonized by Pope John Paul II on July 31st, 2002. And I quote here, in 1979, the Florida biophysicist was analyzing the tilma using infrared technology. He apparently also discovered that the tilma maintains a constant temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the same as that of a living person. there's some very unusual miracles attributed to Our Lady of Fatima. I quote again, "It was found that the retinas of Mary's eyes, like the human eye, expand and contract. The picture was also examined with a stethoscope, at which time scientists found a heart rate of 115 at her belly, corresponding to the pulse rate of a fetus. In other words, a baby. She was expecting a baby, the mother of God, and when they put the stethoscope to the picture, it actually had a heartbeat of a child. So NASA declared the image was living. It was a living image. It still is to this day. But there's more. Scientists claim that Our Lady of Guadalupe's eyes contain 3 effects of image reflection in a living eye. Reflected in the Blessed Virgin's eyes are 13 tiny figures, as if the Blessed Virgin recorded a scene in time with her eyes. These figures include Bishop Zumarraga and St. Juan Diego. The figures form 2 scenes in both eyes, and it is said the colors cannot be seen on the image from a distance of 10 centimeters away. It's as though the colors float above it, and people have described seeing different things with the image, but these are things that are actually documented. Also, in the late 1700s, acid was spilled on the upper right of the cloth, and it was miraculously reconstructed. Some say that's not true, and what is miraculous is that when the acid spilled on the cloth, no damage was actually done except this little dark mark on the top of the image, and the actual part of the Blessed Virgin is just as beautiful as it was any other time. This is acid. Acid eats through anything. So this in itself was a miracle, and these people witnessed it years after St. Juan Diego would have already died. Now here's another thing. The stars that decorate Our Lady of Guadalupe's mantle correspond to the exact position of the constellations in the sky of Mexico City the day of the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe to St. Juan Diego in December of 1531. So if you ever see the mantle that the Blessed Virgin wears, there's stars all over it, and it would be a replica of the constellations in the sky of that time, that day. Science has proved so much in this particular case, and the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe is just another example of the many miracles that exist. Well, I hope you enjoyed my videos and found this informative, and I hope you will join me next time for another interesting video where I will give you the facts of interesting happenings or mysterious happenings. And I always give the facts, very specific things that I take a long time to investigate, to dig up, and you won't always hear this in other versions of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So do your own research. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you enjoy. Please subscribe to my channel, Remote-Backroad-Jungles, with a dash in between each word, and my link is www.youtube.com/@hiddenoasis-secret pathfinder. And I really hope that you will tune in next time. Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope that you will see some more of my videos. I did some on the floating coffins of Barbados. I'm going to do another one on some happenings in the Bermuda Triangle, and they might be unusual and hard to believe, some of these things, but I will always do cases that have been documented, that the happenings are so weird and unexplained, nobody can really explain them. You draw your own conclusions, and if you know anything else about Our Lady of Guadalupe, please tell me in the comments. Thank you so much for joining my channel, and I hope to see you next time.